and yeah, so it's good to be here. I'm gonna give you a quick background about the webinar and then about myself before we start, and as we wait for more people to join. The We're here to learn a bit more about Python and look at practical steps to see how we can teach Python in school. So I'm going to be talking about why do we choose Python in the first place, why it's important, and then how can we implement it in schools, and then what are the benefits for the kids. So this is the plan, and my background is I'm from Coding Next, head of curriculum. So I'm going to share from my perspective, from my experience. So it's good to see many of you guys joining on Zoom, and also it's live streamed. So hi everyone. So I'm going to assume this is a beginner. So it's designed for beginners. So some of you guys might be experienced in teaching, in conducting IT programs. For some, it might be first time. So the key thing is not to teach you guys Python, is to show you how and what are the approaches. So I like to, if you have any questions, so I'd like to make it very interactive. So if you have any questions, jump in, ask away in the chat. You can raise your hand and you can just ask away. So as we wait for more people to join, is there anyone here who would like to say hi? Maybe introduce yourself, your name and where you're from.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Hi, Mr. Rico. How are you?
Hi, I'm Rico. I'm fine. Thank you. I'm Rico from Indonesia. I would like to learn something in this session. Thank you for your class.
Great. Welcome. So from which school are you from?
The Indonesia Natural School Junior High.
Nice. Yeah, welcome. Nice to have you. Yeah, so this is
Thank you, sir.
like the first, you're welcome. This is a series of webinars starting with Python, and this session is in English. Unfortunately, my Bahasa is not too good, but we will be having webinars like this to share our knowledge. The next one is about AI, and that one's going to be mixed, you can say, English and Bahasa. So you can invite your friends next time as well. Okay.
Yeah,
so
sure.
anyone else would like to?
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else would like to say hi? Okay. All right, then let's start. Okay. So I'd like to keep it very interactive. So I have a small exercise for you, is to guess the programming language. Now, in my screen, you see three sets of pictures, right? A, B, and C. I'd like people who are joining to share their answer with me. So can someone guess what's the first language used? I mark it as A. You can raise your hand, you can answer, or you can just type in the chat. So all of these three are coding, is lines of code that gives the same result, but it's in three different languages. So the end result is hello world, just printing a hello world line, but we like to see what's the code. The first one, A. Anyone can guess what's the language? Okay, how would we make it much easier? Which one is Python? Is it the first one? A, B, C? Yeah, correct. It's C. Yeah, of course, you can record. We can also share it. It's going to be on YouTube, so we can share the link afterwards. So, but that's a good option. Yeah. So because it's streamed, I believe it's going to be recorded from there. Okay. So, um, Python is actually the last one. You see, and from a outside perspective, right? If someone who doesn't know programming, if they were to see this, right? The first is Java, second is C++, the third one is Python. So picture yourself as a teacher and think which one would be the easiest for the kids if they were to learn programming the first time. So it's kind of obvious, right? It's print hello world, because the result we want to do is just to print something, and the code is just print, and then you have the text like here. There's no there's nothing else, right? It's very simple. The language is it's very much like English as opposed to Java. So you see Java got 4 lines of code, and then in C++, 4 lines of code, and it's a bit complicated, right? So this is just a simple exercise to show you that Python is simple. It's like English, it's easy. And let's go further into why it's actually the best choice. From my experience, especially for middle and high school, there's no better language than Python. And let's look at the reasons. The first is, as we saw earlier, right? It's simple and readable syntax. It doesn't have like too many complex characters. It doesn't have. It's not very technical, because when you look at programming languages, you have high level and then you have a low level language. The high level language is more closer to what humans can understand, like Python, and a low level language is going to be more towards what is easy for the machine to understand. So something like C++ is more towards the low level language corner. So because it's simple and readable syntax, it's easy for kids to understand. So they don't get like overwhelmed. Oh, there's a missing bracket. There's this thing I have to declare. I have to, no, it's very simple. So that's the one, and I would say the most important factor. The second is Python. Yeah, we have with Python, like there are so many cool and fun libraries. So by a library, it's like, for example, if you see on my screen, you see this pattern over here and the code on the left. So if you see import turtle, so we use something called a turtle library, which makes it possible for us to use some graphics as an output and make it fun for the kids. You can draw some patterns, you can draw some shapes, you can change the color, or if you like to do some games, right? If you like to develop some games, you have the Pygame library. So this helps you with developing games. So it makes it, so if you like to develop the game, all you have to do is call that library and then learn basically how to use those libraries. So it makes it very easy and gives you much more options. The third is Python is widely used in real life. So if you look at the current technologies, right, like I would say AI, there's like Python is very commonly used in these in AI applications, in scripting, in automation. It's used in web development. It's used in data science. It's used in IoT. So Python is a language that outside the classroom, it has a lot of practical use cases. So to summarize, it's easy to read, right? It's has many libraries, and number 3, it's used in real life. So these are like there's so many more reasons, but I want to stick with three. Is there anyone here who'd like to add more from your perspective? Do you feel there are other reasons why Python is the best programming language for kids to start with? Yeah, just share your ideas. The chat. You could raise your hand and just ask away or share your insight. You would know the value once you start teaching other languages. So if you start with C++ and you see the kids' feedback and reaction, and then you teach Python, yeah, you can see the difference clearly, which language they absorb better. Yes, exactly. So Python, once again, from the chat, we see it's simple. It can be used without installation. It's web-based, in most cases. You have applications like web applications like Colab. Yeah, it's very good. So it's very easy to teach and access. Right. So thank you for sharing. Now, let's learn by doing, right? So I'm going to, that's all in terms of presentation, because there's no point just sharing slides. I want to show you, right, how it works. So now we've established the first part. And in fact, if you notice, I start with Python, and I don't start with why it's important to code in the first place, because if you guys are here in this webinar, you understand that coding is important. Technology is important. And hence, we're going more specific into Python here. And now moving on, now that we've established that Python is, I would say, the ideal language to start, how do we start, right? Do you go with textual straight away? Or do you start with some block coding? So what's the approach, right? So let me share from our experience some approach you can take. Now, if you are teaching Python to, I would say, primary school, right? As they say more towards 5, 6, or middle school, like the first grade, and you notice that your kids are not, they haven't had any prior experience in coding, and they need a little bit of a step. They're not ready to go and learn straight away in terms of the textual coding. So what approach can we do for them? What's the approach? So for this, we recommend a step which is not straight going into textual coding, but introducing like Python with block coding as a transition. So we have some tools like EduBlocks, right? It's something we use in our school, in our program. So it's open source, right? You can access it. I'm going to share the link in the chat. So what I'd like you guys to do is, as I'm talking, you can also open this in your laptop. So let me show you what it's about, right? So once you're in EduBlocks, you can choose Python. So I just call this webinar, and then you can choose the block option, or you can choose the text only option. But for beginners, block option is very good. So now if you notice here, let's make this a bit, yeah, we have blocks on the left side, and it's similar to Scratch. And then on the right, you can see the output, and you can see the text. So for example, right, let's go with some text, right, or some print here, right? So if you say print hello world, the kid doesn't have to go and type print hello world, right? Because this is the textual side, and you can click run, and you see the output, hello world. So this can be an approach for beginners, right? If you want to introduce Python in a very simple way, edu blocks. So what you do is just use the blocks, and you can in fact see the code that corresponds to it. And if you like, you can make some additions to the code, and you can see the output. Now let's look at some examples, right? Now this is usually when you start Python, you want to start with displaying some text, right? As I showed you, hello world or hello Indonesia or something. So it works. And now let's see something a little bit interesting, right? So this is very easy to use. So for example, if you want to have more text, right? All you have to do is just get more blocks and change the word here, right? This put welcome to the webinar. And you can see the corresponding text here. You can clear and run the output, and then you see the result over here. So the main advantage here is the kids can actually compare, right, these blocks, and they can know the sequence, right? So now if you switch this up and if you switch it up, you see that the code line changes. And what should happen logically, right? If you invert it, the result sequence should change, right? So it should be a welcome to the webinar and then hello world. So here they just learned that when you code, right, the order matters, the sequence matters. So these are some of the advantages of block, and it could do more, right? So for example, we want to teach them about, just for the sake of the webinar, I'm just going to keep it a little bit short, right? So if you import, so with this, like I mentioned earlier about libraries, so kids, if they're starting off, they like to see colors, right? They like to see shapes. They like to see designs. They like to see something more than just text. So important, like using the Turtle library from imports here is a good start. And this code block over here, right? So you import the library, and then you just call the Turtle. So once you initiate this, right, and you call it Turtle, right? You can call it anything you want. And now what it does here is we are okay. So now if I use these codes, right, forward, what happens is if you run this, you see that this thing here. So we can change it to a turtle. We can change it to any shape, but it just draws a straight line. But now that's just a straight line, right? So what happens if you turn left, right, and you copy this again? Yeah, sometimes it takes some time to. Yeah, see, it draws two lines. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to try to draw a square. So to draw a square, we can try to introduce loops, right? Because a square is drawing a line, but you repeat that process 4 times. So all you have to do is you put that inside the loop, and you mentioned 4 times here, and there should be a square. Okay, so now in just like 15 minutes, I mean, in a few minutes, right? We went from just displaying a text to calling a Turtle library to drawing a line to using a loop to draw a square, you know? So this is something that, because it's block-based, is so much easier for the kids to visualize. And if you look at the code, this is how the code looks. Now, let's have, for example, one more. Let's do one activity together, right? For example, the kid says, okay, a square is boring, and I want to do a circle. I want to draw a circle. So can we do it together? So using the same code blocks, how do I create a circle? Like, how do I make the turtle draw a circle? If you have, if you like to ask, if you like to share your opinion using the microphone, you can do that, or you can type in the chat. So, how do you do that? So now this is another thing, right? When you teach the kids, you don't want to just tell them, oh, to draw a circle, you have to do this. Because then what happens is they become like robots, right? They just get the code and then they can just run it and then it works. We need to now teach them the thought process behind what goes into making a circle, right? So they need to think. So the first step is you would want to ask them, okay, so if you use it as a base, right, a square, if you were to draw a square, you have to draw a line, right? You have to go forward. You have to turn left or right. And then you have to go forward again. And you have to turn left. And then you have to go forward again. So you have to repeat that process 4 times. Basically, you have to draw 4 lines. So for a square, because it had 4 corners, you turn 4 times, right? And then you can ask them, in a circle, right? How many times do you have to turn? In a square, if it's 4, if it's a triangle, it's 3. In a circle, how many times do you have to turn? How many times do you have to turn? Okay, let me ask you guys. How many times do you need to turn in order to draw a circle? Anyone? 360. All right. So we have Mr. Eric here who says 360. All right, let's go 360. Let's run it. So what's happening here is it's drawing a square like 90 times. It's just going over, like, because, okay, so that's actually correct in a way that you have to turn 360 times because a circle obviously doesn't have edges. But if you look at a circle, to make a circle, you need 360 degrees. So that can be 360 turns. So that's correct. But now you have to make one change about the turning, right? Because if it's like turning 4 times, or like drawing 4 lines, you turn 90 degrees. But if you have to turn 360 times, and each time you turn 90 degrees, does that really work? It'll end up like this, right? So now here comes the problem solving part, right? We create a problem for them now. Now it's time to try to fix it. So it could be this angle here, right? That we're talking about. Let's make it, for example, 10. And then let's see what happens. Okay, you saw that? It's not really a circle, right? What's happening? So, okay, because it went out of the screen. Now the point here is you have to lead the student to get the right answer. You have to lead them. Now, I'm going to like jump the gun a bit, right? And change this up. Take 1 step, and then you turn left by 1 degree. So go forward 1 step, turn left by 1 degree, and you repeat that 360 times. So that's actually the correct, or that should give us, hopefully, the correct circle. Yeah, so now you see it over here, that's a circle, right? You go forward and you turn left 1 degree. Okay, just one more question about the circle. Now I say, so now you ask the kids, right? Like how do I make the circle big? What do I have to change here to make the circle big? Or do I have to turn more? Or do I have to go not just one step, I have to take two steps? Like how do you make it big? Anyone? Add more steps. All right, let's try. So add more steps. So from one step, let's make it two steps, right? Or just to make it visible, let's just create just like one more copy of this, like a duplicate. And this time, let's make it three steps, right? All right, let's turn this. Let's check it out. Okay, it's a little bit slow. Like there are ways to make it fast, but okay. So one circle done. Okay. Yeah, so that's correct. That's correct. Um, but now it's too big, right? It's just going like out of the space. So if you want to make it a little bit more kind of in the frame, you can increase the angle. But that's correct. So you see like how you engage with the kids, right? It's not just about like telling them draw a square and this is how you do it. It's about leading them to it. So these are some of the things that you can explore using EduBlocks and block coding. But you will reach, okay, at some point, okay, let's look at this one more thing, a little bit more fun, and let's move on. Yeah, so we have this. So now this is just to show you the possibilities with EduBlocks. All right, so this over here is a pattern. So obviously it uses a little bit more code, a little bit more complicated code. So all of these concepts, you need to teach it to the kids, right? But these are some of the possibilities in terms of what they can actually create. Now, this is good for beginners, right? For them to get started off, a few months. But then at a certain point, you come to a limit, right? You can't create applications with block coding. You have to transition them to textual coding. So if they're in a higher grade, I would say high school or even middle school, but a little bit more, I would say, ready, you can actually get them started with textual coding directly. That's perfectly fine. So for textual coding, I'm going to, again, move on to a different platform because like this is okay for graphical like block coding, but for like, and it's just more like a coding editor, right? It doesn't really have a learning experience or teacher guide or notes for the students. So I'm just going to pivot here to textual coding, and I'm going to show you how you can teach Python textual coding in your school for, I'll say, middle and high school, right? So block coding is for the beginners, maybe like upper primary, or if you just want them to get introduced, but then later on, or for the higher grades, you want to teach them textual coding. So this is actually a platform that we have in CodingNext called Future Classroom. So here, one of the program is Python Fundamentals. So it's designed so teachers without coding experience can actually teach Python. And it's textual, it's text-based with the option of looking at the block coding. So now, if we were to look at a lesson like this, right? Like previously with EduBlocks, I showed you a coding editor, but as a teacher, you need to create the learning material. You need to create the quizzes, the challenges, the all of that stuff, right? So over here, we have actually put together, and I'll try to explain as much as I can about this lesson through Future Classroom. But because you all don't really have the platform yet, I'm just going to share with you a link. So this is basically a normal text editor. You could use this to practice, or if you want, you can still use the EduBlocks coding editor. So I will share the link in the chat. Okay, so if you'd like to open the coding editor, yeah, you can just follow along. So as a teacher, first steps, what do you need to run a class? You need like preparation, right? You need to know, obviously, how many students you have in the class. And then for each student, you need to figure out devices, right? IT lab or Chromebook. But they need to have a device. So the most effective way to learn coding is if every student can have one device, one coding like editor, because sometimes we see that kids are sharing like 2 or 3 kids with one laptop, and it's good in some cases to promote a collaboration, and that will come eventually. But for the beginners, and if you're starting off, it's always recommended to have one device per student. We've seen if there's a group of 2 or 3, in most of the cases, it's one person who is doing the code and the rest are just looking. So like you want to first set that each device per student, right? And then you want to prepare, for example, if you choose to use Future Classroom, you could just set up the accounts, right? Like create a classroom, and then comes the lesson overview. So in the lesson overview, in this lesson, we're going to cover the basics of programming. So what are the basics of programming, or like Python programming? We want to teach them about the print. Like remember in the first, we used to print something with the blocks. That's a basic thing that the kids have to know. What are the data types, and also variables. So variables is basically in Python or in programming is where you like pretty much store something, and strings, right? So these are some of the basics that are covered in the lesson. So the lesson is 60 minutes. Don't worry, I'm not going to take 60 minutes from now. I'll try to just skim through it. But there's an option of extending it to 90 minutes. So at the end of the lesson, right, the objectives are going to be they understand what's Python. They understand basic syntax. Like syntax is like code. They know how to set up the Python environment. They know how to display the output, store data in variables. And at the end of this lesson, we create a project. So the best way to learn coding is by building something, by creating something. So that's what we want to achieve in this, at the end of this. So after this meeting, we're going to give you all a demo account. So you can actually log in and try the material for yourself and see if this is something that can be beneficial. So I'm going to move to this part. Now, with kids, they get bored if you just give them too much text, right? Or if you talk too much. But sometimes if a man on a video says the same thing that you say, yeah, it just looks a bit for the kids it's a bit of change. So in this in all of these lessons we have videos. So just to remind you, because it's designed for teachers who don't have real IT background, all of the learning is happening from videos, course notes. So as a teacher, all you have to do is you become like a coach. You become like a mentor. So for example, in this lesson, you would play this video in the projector, right? And you can show the kids. You can pause the video. You can just add some words, and then you control the pace, but you're not really teaching. The kids are learning from inside. So just to show you, like what I mean, you can start this video as you introduce the class.
Hello coders, I'm Robert from Coding Next, and welcome to our Python Fundamental course. This course is designed to teach you all the fundamentals you need to know about programming in the Python language and connect your coding learning with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, are like a global to-do list with 17 goals agreed upon by the United Nations. The mission? Wipe out poverty, safeguard the planet, and make sure everyone thrives. In this course, we've got 3 main units: healthy food, exercise and sport, and hygiene. All of them are connected to the SDG goals. Through these units, you will not only learn coding, but also gain insights into the important aspects of a healthy lifestyle. So, are you ready to go on this wonderful journey, coders? Let's get started.
Okay, so this is an introduction to the program and the lesson. So if you recall from the video, we mentioned SDG goals. So when you teach like programming, the goal is not just to make a game or make a circle, right? It's about end goal is to use the coding, use programming to solve some problem or to raise awareness, create impact. So when we create the projects, we should try to always encourage the kids to think on that level, right? And to apply their coding problems to real life. For example, if you okay, this is a bit more for the advanced kids, but we've had kids who created their own sleep tracking application, so they can improve their sleep quality. So this also use some Python actually. So they were able to use the coding knowledge to create something more impactful. Or in some cases, we've had children making a website for their school, right? They learned about like web development, and they create something for their school. So now each time the school wants a website, they ask the kids. So they're able to translate their code into something more meaningful. So in this lesson, we are going to create the theme of this module is more on SDG 3, good health and well-being. So most of the projects you see are going to be on promoting healthy lifestyle, like eating clean, exercising, hygiene, and all of that. So you might wonder how we do it, right? How we do it with Python. And you will see very soon how that's the case. Yeah, so we have, besides the video, some, for example, like some teacher guide. So if you're a teacher, obviously this is only be shown for you, so you can have some tips to run the class. And yeah, now, because it's the first lesson, we talk about Python and what is Python a programming language. Sometimes people confuse it with Python the snake, but that's not true. let's see what Python actually means. So in this case, as a teacher in a class, you're not supposed to, of course, you might know it, but let's be real here, right? A teacher, especially in like 21st century and this AI age, the role of a teacher is going to be more, it's not about just transferring knowledge, right? It's about, because let's be, yeah, if I'm to be like really honest, like teachers can, I mean, like the kids can get information from anywhere, right? So we don't really need a teacher in a classroom just to pass information. But what we need a teacher for is to mentor, to guide, encourage, to explain to them, right? Simplify learning concepts, make them enjoy the learning experience. This is something the role of a teacher is, I would say, more suited for. So, for example, it's more effective for AI to tell the kid what's the history of Python than a teacher giving a PowerPoint slide about Python. So we try to cut all of that part to the platform. And if there is a problem with the code and the platform or the student needs extra explanation, then yeah, the teacher can help. Yeah, so if you were a teacher, you would ask the kids, right? So what is the history of Python, right? So who created it? Why is it called Python? And then you might hear some interesting response. The snake is always something that we hear because, yeah, when you say Python, it's the snake, right? So just make it fun, make it lighthearted, and then you play the video. And then after the video, you can ask them, right? So what do you understand from it? Is it really this, or has your perspective changed, right, about this topic? Let's have a look.
What is Python? Python is a powerful, versatile, and most importantly, beginner-friendly programming language. It's designed to be readable and expressive, making it a fantastic choice for those just starting their coding journey. Python gets its name not from the snake, but from the British comedy group Monty Python. It was created by Guido van Rossum, a programming legend. Guido wanted to make a language that was easy to read, write, and understand, and thus Python was born. Thanks to Guido's vision, Python has become one of the most popular programming languages worldwide. It's used in web development, data analysis, artificial intelligence, and more. But let's not get lost in a theory. What makes Python truly special is its application in the real world. Whether you're building websites, automating tasks, or diving into data science, Python is the go-to language for many developers. Web developers use Python to create dynamic websites. Data scientists leverage Python's libraries for analysis, and AI enthusiasts harness its capabilities for machine learning. It's a language that opens doors to countless possibilities. In this course, you will learn the fundamentals of the Python language so that you have a solid foundation for the language itself and for programming concepts in general.
Yeah, so you can pause the video here and you can always ask the kids, right? So what are the use cases of Python, right? And just check, right? Like, were they really attentive or it flew over them? Sometimes you might need to reinforce certain things, right? You can ask them, what are the fields Python is used for? Is it to make, or what can it then create? Is it games? Is it websites? Is it in data science? So this is important because, like, understanding the why makes everything else make sense. And and more meaningful. If they don't understand why they're learning Python, they're not going to learn it well. It's quite important to set that introduction correctly. So if they like some more reading, yeah, that can be done. Yeah. So the first the first step in Python is basically the print function. So a print is basically like an output, right? If you want to give an output, you need to print something, right? If you want to get some information from the user, you have to use an input. So we want to like make them understand the difference between input and output. Usually in a ICT class, they learn about input and output devices on a hardware level, right? The output devices is a screen. Input device is a keyboard, is a mouse. Very good. Now, when it comes to what's happening inside of a program, input and output can mean a little bit different. So they need to understand that. So once again, the flow will be, if you use a program like this, like Future Classroom, the coding editor is actually embedded inside the lesson. So if the students want to code, now before they code, there's another video here, right? So this video explains the concept of a print function. So let's take a look at this.
In any programming language, the very first thing you can do is learn how to print a simple output, like hello. In Python, we can do that by using the print function. So, what exactly is the print function? Think of it as your Python assistant for showcasing info with the basics. To use the print function, all we need to do is type print and include whatever we want to display inside the computer, say hello to the world.
So we have these videos here, and it's always encouraged while you watch the videos to practice along, right? So for example, here in the videos, because I'm doing a webinar, I'm not gonna watch and type at the same time. But in a case in a classroom, we can always encourage them as you show them videos, or when they watch the video on their own, they have to practice. So if you were to practice in this case, so like print, just say hello, and you run this, they get the output, everything is fine. But now, remember, when we said, for some kids, just textual coding is quite hard for them to understand, right? They really want to visualize, or they really are familiar with how it works with the block, but they can't really make sense of it once it's in text format. So there is not all the editors, but for example, here we have the option of switching to block, but we don't encourage them to use the block coding, but they can actually see, right? Print and hello. So for those who are transitioning from block to text, they can always go back. They can just compare how it looks like in the block coding. So this is something extra, but this is simple function of print. So once they learn this, they go on to the next thing, and so if you print, what are the things you can print, right? Is it, much smaller. So printing, you can print words, you can print numbers, you can print sentences. So all of these, it's good if the kids practice. And now that they learn print, it's time for them to implement it, right? So you can give them some challenge, and this challenge is to write a short program to introduce yourself in 5 lines of code using the print function. So you can start coding here and write 5 facts about yourself, right? So my name is Abdullah, and then this is 1 fact. So you want them to keep using it more so they understand how it works. So for those of you who are joining and who open this link, yeah, you can just practice along, right? You can just type the same thing here, the name here, and then you click on the run button. Yeah. So later on, I'll of course send you this demo accounts if you like to try over here. But for the sake of this webinar, I'd like you to learn about this print function if you haven't, because again, for some of you, it might be too basic, but the goal of this webinar is to encourage anyone to learn and to teach coding. You don't really have to become a expert. Like there are tools to help you. We are there to help you. So this is designed for really beginners. So yeah, you can just write a few things, and a good way for teaching something is to make kids debug a problem, right? So now if I type the same thing, I'll just, for example, copy this, but I want to change it like this, right? Print. Obviously, I will not show it to them while I'm doing it. But now if you click run, oh, there's a problem here. Print is not defined. Now this is something you have to bring into the classroom, right? Why is it wrong? It's still the same, right? Print is print. But then some of them might look at, oh, it's lowercase. This is uppercase. This is lowercase. Oh, and now you have to point out, okay, let's try if we change it back to lowercase, and then you run this again, and now it's fine. So now they understand that certain functions or Python is case sensitive, right? Print with uppercase and print with a lowercase, it means different things, right? The function of this particular print function has to be with lowercase p. So they understand those concepts. So making a mistake and debugging it together with the kids, that's a very good strategy. The first part of the lesson is to establish the print command. And the main reason is if you don't know how to give an output, you'll not be seeing anything in your code. You'll not be seeing any result, because any result means, yeah, an output. So once that's established, so you start off by introducing Python, why it's important, and then you talk to them about the print function. And the next will be, so you have lines of code, but where do, for example, if you create a name, right? Like previously, and if I want to use that name again, how do I do that? Because with the print function, it only gives you the output. So how do you store something? So how do I store my name somewhere in the program, which I can access later? That's done by variables. So variables are basically where you can store different types of data. So this is the second concept. But how you store in code, right? You might have numbers, you can have a letter, you can have words, you can have sentences. So how you store a letter is different to how you store a number. Even though from the outside it looks the same, how the computer treats a number is not the same as how it treats a letter or the alphabets. So that's what we call data types. So we have certain types of data. One can be numbers, we call them integer, but these are whole numbers. If you have, for example, a number with a decimal, 10.5, that's not an integer. That's classified as a float data type. So this is the different data types that the kids needs to understand, and we that's a good next point, talking about strings. So I will skip the video for now. Like till this point, do we have any questions? Yeah, so the like data types are going to be, believe 6. We have more like integer, float. Float is like decimal. String is can be a sentence. A Boolean is true or false. So if you want to do a comparison, and yeah, you need to use something called Boolean. So all of these we go into detail later on. So first you have to learn to classify, right? What's a, for example, if you see a number 3.4, and if you want to store it, you have to store it like this. You have to create a variable called height, and you have to store it. Now, the difference with, and the main positive about Python is, if you, like how you store something is the same, Python will handle the data type for you. But in certain other languages, you have to specify. If it's integer, you have to put int and height. So you have to specify the data type. But in Python, you don't have to do it. Yeah, so this is more on understanding about variables. Yeah, so if you're giving a name, like in English or any language, right? You can't just give a name that makes no sense or in any format, right? If you're having a name of a person, you can't give it a numbers, right? You can't just call someone 256 B. Like you can't. There's a certain convention, right? It has to be unless you're Elon Musk, who I think named his kid with some numbers. But overall, you have some rules. So same with Python. If you have to create a name, you have to make sure it's not a Python keyword, that you can't call it print because it's already a Python keyword. You can't add a space. It should be just one word. And it must follow the correct structure. So you have to create the name, and you have to insert the value, and in the middle you have an equals sign. Yeah, so these are some of the rules that we have. Yeah, so I'm going to just jump a bit, right? A little bit further down. Important way to assess, like with any other subject, how kids understand is by giving them a quiz, right? Like nowadays with ChatGPT, it's easy to even generate these like quizzers. But in a classroom, it is quite important for these type of assessments. So don't forget, when you cover a certain concept, always good to share some assessment with them and divide it into more practical. I would say that's the most important. But sometimes the theory part is equally important. So, for example, this, right? We have the output here, print hello world. So there's a comma here, right? So what does the following code output? Who wants to try it? A. Okay. So we hear A from 3 of you guys. Let's go correct. Correct. So that's yeah, and there's also this dopamine that gets released from the kids, right, when they get something correct, that can motivate them to go further in their studies. So yeah, there's different type of assessments. And coming back to the real part, it's about the projects, right? Now, in this lesson, we'll teach them about print function, we teach them about data types and variables, and we also teach them about this concatenation, which is like combining strings. And in this project, we want them to create a simple like food information card or healthy food information card. So it should display any type of food, right? In this case, we give example. You have to say, okay, this is apple, it's a fruit, these are the benefits, this is the price, this is the calories, and is it recommended? So when you make a project like this, you apply all of the concepts learned in the class. So is it recommended for daily use? The answer can be yes or no, right? There's no in between. So for this, you use a Boolean data type because true or false. If you're giving, for example, a name of a food, it should be a string because a name can't be a number. But if you are giving the price, it must be, okay, is the price an integer or is it a float? What's the data type of price? It's a float, right? Because it has decimals. So kids have to create this project and they can pick anything they want and it's done over here. So once they create this, like remember the goal of for example, if you use a platform like this, the teacher is a coach, right? And they might not be really expert, or sometimes it takes time to troubleshoot these errors. So we have in the coding editor. Now this particular project, it's working fine. There is no syntax error, but we want them to use all of the data types that they learned. So we have this thing called test Python. Yeah, test Python. So this test is actually gonna hold on. Test Python. Oh yeah. It will actually tell you that okay, you passed something, but there's some mistakes here. But the mistake is not mistake with the code, it's mistake in the sense you did not include certain things, right? Like float, you didn't include the strings, you haven't included Boolean. So as a result, this test has failed, right? So you want to make sure that the kids actually pass all of it. You see, like this, they have the number of prints and all of that. So the platform has the option of verifying and correcting the code for the kids. And once again, they want to see how it looks in the block. Yeah, there you have it. So this is a simple lesson journey. If you were to teach Python in your school using STEMilab or meaning Future Classroom and STEMI editor here. But yeah, we're going to give you, I know this was a little bit fast, right? I'm going to conclude with this because time is up. We're going to give all of you guys who joined an account for you guys to just try it out for free, and just give us your feedback, just tell us how you feel. And we just want you to know that it's not hard to teach coding in your school. regardless of which school you're from. Language, right? So it doesn't mean it's my presentation is in English, but we have all of this in Bahasa Indonesia as well. But that's besides the point. I'd like you to, the next few minutes before we end, I'd like to get your feedback on what more ideas do you have in terms of teaching Python? Do you have some cool story you want to share with us and everyone here? Or do you have any questions for me? I'd like to open this floor. In fact, I'm opening the chat right now, and I see the project customized. So there's a question about customizing projects. Right now, we don't customize the project. We have fixed project for each lesson, but the teacher can customize it, meaning it doesn't mean you only have to make a healthy food information card. You can ask them to make something else. So the teacher can add something to the project or tweak it a bit. That's fine. Yes. Does anyone have something to ask me about Python teaching in the school? Or do you have any sort of like challenges that you want to share with me? Like about something that you faced while you were teaching? Yeah, of course, of course. So this is, it can be for anyone, for everyone to learn Python. So because with Python, it's not just for teaching kids; it can be even for improving your day-to-day life, right? If you want to, like for example, there was a long time ago, I had to download like 25 YouTube videos, and you have these tools, right? But I just made a Python script. I just pasted the links, and it just like downloaded all 25 videos, and the name of the folder was in a specific format that I wanted. So basically, Python is something that can help in your life, make it more efficient and faster, and you can automate things. Even as a teacher, right? If you have to do some data analysis for your like students' result, I'm sure like Python can help you with that. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for joining. There at this point, I don't see any more questions, so I will once again like to thank you guys for joining, and please give us your feedback after this. And next, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have a session about AI and how you can teach AI in the classroom. So that should be quite interesting for you guys as well. And it'll be conducted by our curriculum specialist, Miss Yuan. So in 2 weeks, I really hope you guys can tune in, invite your friends. And at some point, we'd like to see you guys also visit us, and maybe we can have some, a discussion or something about school, about Python in schools, about technology in schools. So we really look forward to keeping in touch with you and to see you in future webinars. Also, like apologies if I went full English. I'm not really that good with Bahasa yet. So thank you guys for joining. Mr. Rico, it's good to see you. And also for those who were active in the chat, Ms. Rina, Mr. Afif, Ms. Afif, yeah, Mr. Taya. Yeah, thank you guys. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you guys. See you. Goodbye. Have a good day. See you in the next webinar.